And we're continuing with Chapter 29 of Burying the Boys, the CIA, the Mob, and America's Secret History by Daniel Hopsicker. Who is Richard Benveniste? I did my part by laundering Barry Seal into the arms of Vice President Bush, who embraced him as an undercover operative. Benveniste had said to reporters who questioned his ethics in sitting as Democratic co-counsel on the Whitewater Commission, after being a lawyer participant in matters being investigated. Benveniste said he'd read of the Seal Lassiter link, intimating he knew nothing more. But the attorney defending Barry Seal, and later a key figure in the drug angle of the Whitewater probe, surely knew far more than that. Who is Richard Benveniste? He's made, we learned, a career of defending political crooks specializing in cases that involve drugs and politics. But in laundering the biggest drug smuggler into the arms of George Bush, he may have outdone himself. The gray-haired lawyer who defended Bill Clinton on the Whitewater Commission first entered the limelight as a Watergate prosecutor in 1973, point man in prosecutions of Nixon's aides Mitchell, Haldeman, and Ehrlichman, displaying total recall of the facts. He led the successful fight to secure the secret Nixon White House tapes. In the wrangling over Nixon's tapes, he worked with Hillary Rodham and Bertrand Nussbaum. The three would later find themselves working together, this time on the defense's side in the Whitewater scandal, where during Benveniste's tour of duty as minority special counsel to the Senate Whitewater Committee, he served up enough disdain, contempt, and indignation to fortify the Democratic contention that the whole investigation was an overblown load of partisan mudslinging. But we also discovered this curious fact. Benveniste had regularly been referred to in print as a mob lawyer and mob figure, and a very close associate to the notorious mobster Alvin Malnick. These are curious credentials for someone defending the President of the United States. But while Benveniste defended Clinton on the Whitewater panel, the media ignored his mob connections. In the early 1980s, Benveniste had represented both Barry Seal and Bill Clinton, while after Clinton was elected for a second term as governor of Arkansas, mob money started pouring into Arkansas. That was the election when the mob really came into Arkansas's politics. The dog track and racetrack boys, the payoff people who saw a good thing, a former U.S. attorney told Roger Morris and Sally Denton. It wasn't just Bill Clinton, and it went beyond our old Dixie Mafia, which was penny ante by comparison. This was Eastern and West Coast crime money that noticed the possibilities, just like the legitimate corporations did. The quintessential Washington lawyer Benveniste has the huge house, the $1 million partnership bonuses, the Rolodex with everyone's private numbers, and the ego to go with it all. He even played a commentator's role in the Iran-Contra scandal. My feeling is that the American people within the next 6 months or so will have a pretty good idea of what occurred, he said. When the two former national security officials asserted their Fifth Amendment rights during the hearings, he defended their refusal to talk, saying, in common parlance, you would say things might be bad enough without getting hit with your own bat. When White House Speaker Jim Wright, Democrat of Texas, was caught accepting bribes camouflaged as book sales, he had turned to fixers Clark Clifford and Richard Benveniste. Clifford himself was later caught up in the BCCI scandal. What did that stand for? Bangles Commercial? I forgot what it stands for. but mysteriously escaped prosecution by the Bush Justice Department. Benveniste had done more than his share of duty defending people accused of financial scams, a mob specialty. He represented the central figure in Europe's biggest investment scandal of its time. Thomas Quinn, a lawyer and president of a New York brokerage firm, who was disbarred for involvement in a scheme to promote shares in a company whose assets were all but non-existent. Later, Quinn was charged with pocketing at least $500 million, selling worthless stocks to thousands of small investors in various European countries. Benveniste had defended Charles Gladson, a high-ranking official of the Agency for International Development, USAID, often used as a CIA front, and the chief of staff to Virginia Governor Doug Wilder in a case that involved the planting of a microtransmitter listening device, a CIA specialty. Another client was Truman Arnold, chief moneyman at the Democratic National Committee, for a critical 5-month period. In 1995, the DNC was deeply in debt and reeling from its historic 1994 defeat at the polls. Arnold also put Webster Hubbell on the payroll between Hubbell's resignation and Clinton's man at the Justice Department, and his subsequent guilty plea to charges that he defrauded clients and law partners, Chelsea Clinton's real father. Webb Hubbell. Benveniste found himself again at the red-hot center of political controversy at the point at which the Whitewater investigation of independent counsel Kenneth Starr and the unfolding Democratic fund-raising scandal converged. Benveniste's curiosity about the facts of Whitewater was, as might be expected, highly selective, said a Democratic staffer who professes admiration for Benveniste's performance in general. When admiration was on the ropes, he'd throw them like a life raft. He also defended Terry McAuliffe, the wheeler dealer who slapped down $1.35 million to let the Clintons buy their New York dream house, which some wit dubbed Disgraceland. Called a witness in a Teamsters corruption trial, McAuliffe, a Washington lawyer, fixer, and top money man for the Democratic Party, was an unnamed player in the indictment of a Teamsters political director, Bill Hamilton, who prosecutors say illegally schemed with McAuliffe to swap union money for Democratic cash in a money laundering scheme involving the DNC, the Teamsters, several White House aides, and the 1996 Clinton-Gore re-election campaign. When the chief promoter of a controversial proposal to an open Indian gambling casino in Hudson, Wisconsin, told a House committee that President Clinton's top fundraiser, Terrence McAuliffe, had bragged of using political influence to have the project killed by the Interior Department, it was time to call in someone to call off the dogs. Fred Havenick, head of a Miami company operating dog tracks in 3 states, fingering McAuliffe to the House Government Reform Committee in public hearings on the campaign financing abuses of the 1996 election. Through his attorney, Richard Benveniste, McAuliffe predictably denied everything. Benveniste, he said, he is acquainted with Mr. Havenick, who apparently was a contributor, but he never had such a conversation with him. How do dog track guys get acquainted with the leader of the free world's top fundraiser? But all this seemed like small potatoes when we learned more about Benveniste's close association with Meyer Lansky's heir as head of the mob, Alvin Malnick. How odd, we had thought when we first heard it, that Barry Seal offered to roll on his attorney. Rolling on your attorney is odd, but rolling on someone else in the criminal organization slightly higher, like your boss, that happens all the time. Bit of a short one today.